By now, most of you know of Uncle Jim, the Colonel's nephew, my great-uncle. This photo was originally shared a couple of years ago by the Old Toronto series in Canada, and they originally labeled it as Harlan Sanders in a Canadian airport. And that's not Harlan, that's Uncle Jim. That's Harlan's nephew. Uncle Jim was from Seymour, Indiana. He ran a Columbus, Indiana franchise. Some articles claim that Uncle Jim was groomed by the corporation to replace Uncle Harley as he was aging to be a younger, more energetic Colonel Sanders for the brand. And that's not really true. Uncle Jim was like me. He liked to dress the part. He was a Kentucky colonel, and he just liked to dress that way. And he wanted to resemble our uncle. But he was a brand ambassador for a short time for Kentucky Fried Chicken before they fired him because he got mad at corporate, told them to go screw themselves. Don't know what that entirely was about. It could have been about their feud with Lee's. It could have been about anything, really. I don't know, but, he lost his temper with them. They fired him from it. Then he sold his franchise, and then he died in 1989. Anyways, I tell you all that story because that's Uncle Jim. But I found a younger version of Uncle Jim. That is my great-great-grandmother, Bertha, who married Clarence Sanders, my great-great-grandfather, the Colonel's brother. They had 2 children, my Grandpa Charles and my Uncle Jim. And this is Uncle Jim a bit younger. Without his glasses, he looks a bit different without his glasses. But, I look a little different too. Uncle Jim was also the last Sanders that was involved with Kentucky Fried Chicken, both brand ambassadorship and franchising with them. After Uncle Jim, no more of the Sanders family was involved with KFC. However, there was other cousins of ours, not Sanders, but different last names, such as Lee Cummings and his family, that was involved with Kentucky Fried Chicken. But as for the Sanders, Uncle Jim was the last one. Actually, the JRN Corporation doesn't know what the recipe is. I know this because I talked with David Neal, John R. Neal's brother. He even asked my grandfather and I if we knew the recipe, and I told him no, and my grandfather told him no, and David said he didn't know it either. But what David did know was the type of flour that they used to use, because the only job he ever knew in his life was Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he was there when Uncle Harley was there, and Uncle Harley showed him how to do it. He witnessed the very changes that the corporation made after Uncle Harley sold out. He witnessed the legal changes, he witnessed the flour change, the oil change from lard, the multiple changes in oil through the years. David Neal knows a lot about Kentucky Fried Chicken and working there, more than I ever will, because he actually experienced it for many, many years. But they don't know the recipe. There's only a select few people in corporate and people with NDAs that knew what the recipe was and know. This cup was given out at Kentucky Fried Chicken's in 1990 for the centennial celebration of Colonel Harlan Sanders, his 100th birthday. On the back of these cups, it has a little story. September 9th, 1990 marks the 100th anniversary of the birth of a true American pioneer, Colonel Harlan Sanders. From his first restaurant in Corbin, Kentucky, to founding of the Kentucky Fried Chicken chain in 1952 and until his death in 1980, Colonel Sanders dedicated his life to perfect quality and service. Today, more than 8,000 Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants worldwide are proud to continue that tradition. We salute the Colonel, a man for whom perfection was just barely enough. This also marked the year that they opened the Sanders Cafe and Museum. After going to Corbin, Kentucky and meeting with Kentucky Fried Chicken at their first location, my faith is renewed in this brand. It's been a long time since I've seen a Kentucky Fried Chicken serve gizzards. I actually don't think I've ever seen it. I think I've heard about it before my birth. And my family has made a couple of restaurants that are still around today. One of them still does serve chicken gizzards at all locations. But you want to know something else that Kentucky Fried Chicken used to serve? Popcorn shrimp. You used to be able to get a basket of popcorn shrimp. Or it might have just been regular fried shrimp. My grandpa remembers it. Whenever him and the Colonel would go out for lunch when the Colonel was visiting the family, they would go to KFC and they would get popcorn shrimp. Now, if they didn't go to KFC, they would get something else. Everyone would get chicken in honor of Uncle Harley. Uncle Harley get a big old steak, depending on where it was. Same thing with KFC. Most people got chicken in honor of Uncle Harley. Uncle Harley and my grandfather would get something different. I don't know what Uncle Harley got different at Kentucky Fried Chicken, because depending on the location back in those days, they were also tied in with other restaurants like Geno's, and you got Carter's, Scott's Chicken Villa, Jack Purtle's. I mean, all these other restaurants had different menu items, but they were also serving Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, he didn't ask for this information. Quite frankly, I don't care. I just gotta talk. But I'll end this video with a fun fact. Did you know that Colonel Sanders' favorite piece of chicken was the wing? He believed it was the meatiest, juiciest part of the bird. Now you know. They had that down to 8.5 minutes. I got something wrong. I've been saying 8.5 minutes. No. 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 Now, people from KFC tell me that it takes 14.5 minutes now, okay? So, oh boy, here we go. I got information wrong. I got a time wrong. It didn't take 8.5 minutes. It took 6.5 minutes to 7 minutes to fry his chicken under pressure with his initial design. 6.5 to 7 minutes, not 8.5. 6.5 to 7 minutes. That's even shorter time than 8.5 minutes, and a heck of a lot shorter than 14.5 minutes today. Uncle Harley was an expert in this field. I'm still learning, trying to study every aspect of his chicken life that he has worked with so I could accurately provide you information. So this is an example of something I had mistaken. I thought it was 8.5. It was 6.5. Go figure. Actually, they don't. Grace's Perfect Blend on their website even says their recipe, though has the ties to the Colonels, is not the Colonels. Pat Grace in 1972, the year that Uncle Harley gave his franchises in Canada to charity, met with Uncle Harley just before he did that and convinced him to set him up with franchises over in Ireland, and he sent over his spice mix and his cookers there. Now this was 1972, so these were the 1967 modified pressure fryers with the Catch-O-Matic, I think that's what it was called, the Catch-O-Matic, Winston Industries. Anyway, so he set him up with that stuff over there in Ireland. And Pat Grace reverse engineered what he believed was in the recipe and created Grace's Perfect Blend. That's what they sell today. 99X from Marion K. Spices sells the original recipe, or at least it used to be until '83 when KFC sued them. It's unclear what exactly changed, but there's some speculation around it, and we have some hard ingredients that are revealed through 99X.